Welcome to Better Credit, Better Home, your source for the latest local and national news that can impact you if you are in the market for real estate. Here are your hosts, the Kingwood mortgage guy, Mike Durr, who uses his 25 years as a mortgage professional to help people improve their credit, and Joe Salas, an accomplished home inspector, real estate agent, and trainer of new agents for Byrd Property International. Together, they will help you understand what you need to know to get the most out of your real estate investment. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Let's get started. Joe, good to see you, man.
See you. Happy 4th, belated.
Belated 4th. Yeah, did you guys go anywhere well on the 4th? I know you were away.
We just recently got back, so we stayed local. Ended up going over to my grandpa's house and cooking lunch and making brisket and inviting some family over. So it was a good time.
Nice. Yeah, we traveled a little bit in between that time, just up to Lake Palestine. Have you ever been up to Lake Palestine, south of Tyler?
No.
It's a nice lake. It's
lots of limestone up there, so I guess it's a little clearer, or is it a muddy lake?
I'd by lake standards, it's probably the same. I mean, I don't notice the difference in the clarity.
Yeah.
The one thing I do notice, having the home in Livingston, our lake gets more wind than Lake Palestine. In other words, there are days when it's calm, but I measured it about 25 to 30% calm and 65, 70% choppy, just because the wind's going. And up there, I think at Lake Palestine, it's probably just the opposite. It's calmer than it is windy.
The wind's coming up from the ground because it's so hot, right?
I don't know what it is, but I know when you're out there trying to get in a boat or riding in a jet ski and stuff like that, it's not as much fun if it's choppy like that. But
yeah, that's true.
That's neither here nor there. But it was fun. We had a good time, and I'm glad to be back and get a little bit of rest. But anyway,
let's talk about the housing market. Is it windy or is it calm?
The housing market is probably calm by that standards. Yeah, good segue there. Good metaphor too. I kind of share with people today and with you also that our presentation today is AI assisted. So does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, I played around with Chat GPT and the Byrd, Google's Byrd a little bit. So yeah, I'm familiar.
It's kind of interesting to see what can happen with that stuff, and not the fact that I'm not at the baseball game right now. As a matter of fact, there is no baseball game here, but that's not part of the AI assisted stuff. But we're going to talk about understanding how to buy your first home in 2023, and I actually typed that heading. No, I don't think I did. I didn't even type that heading in there. I said, what would be a good heading or a good title for first-time home buyers? And it said, understanding how to buy your first home in 2023. And I went, okay, so that's what I want you to talk to me about. And in fact, it gave me some interesting subjects. So we're going to go over, this is kind of the quick slot of what we're going to do. Factors to consider before purchasing a home, budgeting and financing options for first-time home buyers, exploring different types of home loans, researching and choosing the right neighborhood, I like that one, important features to look for in a first home, navigating the home inspection and appraisal process, negotiating the best price and terms for your first home, essential tips for first-time home buyers, closing process, and then my commercial of my $4,000 grant program, which is the loan I just closed. It actually closed yesterday, funded today because of the craziness that happened. But it turned out to be the gal really, even though she wanted to close yesterday, she was really happy at the terms and the way that thing came down. So I want to share that
for sure.
So I thought that these, just looking at that, I thought I was pretty impressed with the way that came about, the documentation. So it's a lot of things to cover, and we don't have time to cover all that stuff. We're going to go over it pretty quick, but a lot of it is really specifically towards realtors and inspectors. And so you're going to get a lot of it. So factors to consider before purchasing a home. Joe, can you see that?
Yep.
Go over that list with me, or go for us.
Yeah. Pre-qualified. Yeah, absolutely. You want to know where your pain points are, I guess, and what you can afford monthly, because that's how mortgage looks at it, right? Finding a reputable real estate agent right here.
Yep.
Planning on inspecting the home with seasoned inspectors. Very good point. I mean, that out of all the things that you do at the front end of purchasing a home, that's one of the most important, other than finding out what price range you could be at. Location, schools, commutes, future real estate resale. That's all part of what a seasoned realtor can provide for the most part. We don't have crystal balls. There is no express warranties or guarantees as far as future resale value, but we can help you and run some reports on the location in schools and some demographics in regards to the area that you're looking in. Ideal size to suit you and your family. Obviously, I actually heard this way back right when I graduated college. The guy told me, don't buy the house you need now, buy the house you need 7 years from now.
Yeah.
Because most of the time your family unit's going to grow. And then property taxes, obviously, there's can't get away from those for the most part. You can lessen the pain, but you can't get away from it.
So the one that I wanted to pay particular attention to was the plan on inspecting the home with a seasoned inspector. And one of the things that I hear is all inspectors are not the same. They're not created equal. Some of them are, sometimes they just are Debbie Downers, is the term I'm going to use, is like, oh my gosh, this is the worst house. It's going to fall down today. And it's not, there's those guys. But the other part of it, I think, is the saving you thousands of dollars. People whine a little bit about paying $500 for an inspection when it's going to save them multiple times that, just by the ability to negotiate or the savings of repairs that they're not going to have to make because of they got the stuff inspected early. One of the guys I'm in got closing next week. He did his inspection. They loved the house. They did an inspection. They found out that the foundation had a little bit of problems, not much. But then, as they dug deeper, they found out that it had termites, and the termites were eating up the wood that was holding up the foundation. So it turned out to be a huge benefit for them. And in this particular case, that guy's analysis was worth thousands, maybe tens of thousands. So cool stuff. Yeah. And so if if you're a first-time home buyer, this is stuff you can't pass on. This stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you have to do and you have to look at, and you have to kind of sit there and go, okay, well, this is all information I need to put on a checklist. I mean, that's what it is. Don't you have a checklist? You have a checklist for your inspection, right?
Well, yeah, I use the kind of internal checklist as far as what we do and what I do in my inspection business. But the state actually has it available for all of public, which actually I think knowledge is power. You go to the TREC website, TREC, and then in the little search bar, you type in SOP, which is the standards of practice for real estate inspectors. You're actually going to be able to see what minimally we have to inspect to, and what we actually don't have to inspect, which is also an important part of the inspection.
Well, that's excellent. And I think that anybody that's listening to this needs to go to that website and get that, just so they can understand that, because a lot of times people buy houses and they like the idea of buying stuff, but they don't really do the research and study that they need to do. But this is a good start. That's what we want to do. We want to help you guys buy a home that's going to serve you well, that's going to appreciate, and you'll be able to buy bigger homes, or maybe you'll stay like I did in my home for 150 years.
That's 17 years right here.
All right. So the next thing is budgeting and financing options for first-time home buyers. And this one's just real simple. You want to know what the payment's going to be. You want to know what the down payment's going to be. You know what credit scores you're going to need, and would be nice to know what programs you qualify for. And that's just real simple. As a matter of fact, I did that for a gal today, and it turned out that it was a lot of times are complicated, depending on if you're married or if your spouse doesn't work, or maybe they work but they're self-employed for a year, and or they just there's all kinds of little variables that go into this. But this is the kind of stuff that you need to sit down with somebody like myself to help you go through and find out what exactly you qualify for. So
that pre-qualification is priceless.
yeah, it's a big deal. Exploring the different types of loan programs or home loans. Well, really, there's just this group, and this is not a forum where we're going to go over each one of them, but there's FHA, which is a government-sponsored loan, particularly aimed at first-time home buyers. The USDA, one of my favorite types, actually, this is a 0% down loan for people that fit a specific criteria. Their income is such and the home is such, but for particularly specific for certain areas in and around outside of Harris County. You won't do a USDA in Harris County, but all the counties around here, you can do them all day long. I think that the income thing is 80% of the median income, which a new report just came out, and pretty much all of the counties in and around Harris County are at 72,000. So if you make 72,000 or less, then you'd qualify for a USDA loan. You get 0% financing. That should help a lot of people. VA loan, great loan, best loan out there, 0% down. Rates are spectacular. It's just a really good loan. Conventional is a very attractive loan. You have to have a little bit better credit, a little bit better, maybe a little more money for down payment, but they're good. And then the non-QM part is the part where you're just a little outside the box. Maybe you're self-employed. This is what a lot of people that are self-employed use. And you pay a little bit in a premium on rates, but you get pretty good terms.
Yeah, Mike, I actually had one of my trainees reach out to me today, and she goes, Joe, I need some update as far as each loan type. And so my question to you is, do you have something that either we could log in, a customer or a client, and then log into your website and see what each loan type offers, or as far as like the strengths and pros and cons of it, or you have something developed like that? I
don't, that would be a good tool. Be honest with you, I could use a tool like that too, even though I just, because I've been doing it as long as I have, we just know. But here's simple category. The first two choices are conventional versus FHA, right? That most people that are going to be able to do a loan are going to qualify in that arena first. And here's the simple version of it. If your credit score is below 680, you're most likely going to be better in an FHA loan. The caveat to that is if you're putting 20% down. I looked at one today that was like that, and this is a person that I think she had a 650 FICO score, and the FHA loan turned out to be better because the conventional mortgage insurance was $400 a month. I mean, and that made the difference. So when you go below really 680, the mortgage insurance, and you're putting less than 20% down, then you should go FHA. I mean, that's pretty much it. The FHA, I did a loan for a guy that had a 775 FICO score, but he had some other quirky stuff going on, and we did an FHA for him for $475,000.
Oh, wow.
So in the answer to the gal that asked you that, say, call Mike.
Yeah, that's
he'll do it for you.
That's what I'm going to do. We were communicating text earlier, and I got sidetracked, but yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
All right, researching and choosing the right neighborhood. I think this is big, but this is your slide. So talk on this one.
Well, we all know what the first rule of real estate is, right, Mike?
First three, isn't it?
Yeah, location. That is actually paramount to people searching. And so whenever I have a new client, a new buyer client, especially a new buyer client that's not familiar with the area, one of the first things I tell them is drive around, find listings. I can send you listings. I can search all over the Houston metropolitan area. and kind of pick out your aesthetics and, size and bedroom, bathroom count. And I'll send those to you. Drive around, figure out if this area is something that matches your wants and needs. And those wants and needs can include, schools, churches, shopping. There's all sorts of things. Location and proximity to your work. There's all sorts of things that will make a person desire a location over another. And so that's actually. And then I tell them, I said, once you find that location or that general area, then we'll start hitting that area really hard, looking for houses that suit you and your desires.
So for people that are moving here from out of state, and there are a lot of them like that have no clue where to go. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. When I moved here, I was moving from San Antonio, and I had one friend that lived in Houston. And he was a guy I grew up with, and we thought, well, the best place to at least start is in the area that he lives, so we could be close to our friends. So I didn't put friends on this list, but I think that's a factor, is that there's got to be some social part to it also.
Yep,
so
I agree.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and Houston's a monstrous size. I mean, I think we're number one geographic largest city in the United States anyway, something like that.
Well, you can't even drive across Houston in an hour.
No,
it took us 56 minutes to drive across Rhode Island when we went on our trip, and that's where the bathroom stopped. Okay, so it's huge.
All right, important features to look for in your first home. Well, this is you. I mean, you're the realtor, so go for it.
Yeah, it like that guy told me whenever I first got into college, don't buy the house that you need now. Obviously, you're looking for things that are beneficial to you now, but also plan for the future in what you're buying, because it is a quite a bit of investment. Usually people, I hate to say it, but usually people are kind of like when you drive a new car off the lot. You're going to be a little bit upside down if you want to go and sell it again, because you got to think of the closing costs and commissions and everything else. So, the first couple of years are kind of regaining that through the appreciation and appreciative value of the house. So obviously some of the amenities that you're looking for now should match your current needs. But, the backyard space that you have listed here, walk-in closets, energy efficiency. These windows behind me are not energy efficient. And so around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that's actually something that a client needs to know about, or a first-time home buyer. Be aware of what time you're visiting the property. If you're showing the property at one time in the morning, go and do a second showing in the afternoon, because in the morning it's cool as a cucumber in my house. Yeah. In the afternoon, when the sun starts beating down on this back wall for 3 hours, 4 hours, it gets pretty hot in my office area. Mm-hmm. So just understanding what is your desires. And hey, there's a tip for people that are listening, Mike. Ask for there's something you can ask for. Ask for the average utilities, or the last 12 months utilities from the sellers. That way you can see the electrical usage and everything, because you'll see my house specifically $100, $200 during the winter months. Right now we're paying about $400 a month. That's how energy inefficient this house is.
I like the one about this backyard space too, because even though you may not have kids today, yep. You may be planning on having kids. And if you have kids, you need somewhere safe for those kids to run around and have fun back there. And people are looking for that kind of stuff. And I look, I guess I'm a typical guy. I look at the backyard and I look at the garage. I mean, those are kind of places I kind of can gravitate to, I guess.
Yeah. And then if your property backs up to another sort of property, in case in point, we have some friends that are looking to list their home. But behind their home, there's an apartment complex. Mm. In that apartment complex, there's a dumpster right behind the back fence of theirs. So on certain days, and living in Humble, or around the Humble area, they have the dump over there. On certain days, and the wind blows right, you can smell trash for sure. Yeah, so
not good. Definitely a day. Oh, here you go. This one's all yours, brother.
I love this. So
I got you in there looking at that guy going, what the hell?
that pose was inspired by a South Park episode. So I just want to let everybody know. But the inspection and appraisal process, your first line of defense, I guess, in this is, and this is how I train the trainees, the new agents that are coming into our brokerage. Slow down a little bit, look around. Don't get so enthralled about the beauty or the remodel. Take some time, go outside and look at the roof, look at the walls, look at the windows. Take some time, look around inside. Yes, the house may be pretty, but if you look a little deeper and blink a couple times, you'll start seeing some of the things that maybe are trying to be hidden. But a qualified inspector, and then obviously Tim is not on the call today, but a qualified appraiser will help you solidify, or at least give you their opinions to solidify what you understand to be the general condition of the house and the general value of the house at the time of purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some people like me when I bought my house 32 years ago that didn't have a clue what to look for. I mean, we were novice. I wasn't in the mortgage industry at the time, and I had no clue as to what we were buying. And we paid a little bit of a price for that, even though we had an inspection. The guy was a knucklehead. I mean, anyway, won't even go there. All right, negotiating the best price and terms for your first home. Well, you need help, and there's the guy that can help you right there.
Oh man, I love that house that I'm standing outside of right now. I put my for sale sign out. This was one of those things where I'm not only the hair club president, but I'm also a client. So I preach all the time to my trainees to look at the market value and to understand what the market is, and to use the competition within the market to drive the price up. And that's on the sales side, but understanding what the local market is and understanding the trends and the comparable sales, that's all something that is what the value we bring to you as a client, us as realtors, and we're your advocate throughout the process. So we negotiate on your behalf, we communicate on your behalf, we fill out paperwork and explain the paperwork to you, so that you understand what the process is, and that hopefully you're not left in the dark. I was looking at some of our old leases when we were in Colorado. We leased out this house, and we also leased a house in Colorado. I was looking at some of that paperwork, and I was like, man, I was signing stuff I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Had no idea. So a good realtor will walk you through those processes and make sure that they're able to answer any questions.
Yeah. And I think the real important part, you hit it on both sides. A great realtor and negotiator knows what's out there, has been through those things, with whether it's a new home or whether it's an existing home. You just got to have somebody that knows what the heck they're doing. If you don't, you're taking a chance on the biggest investment you'll ever make. All right, essential tips for first-time home buyers closing process. Well, it's kind of an exciting time. I mean, I know that final walkthrough is, a lot of people take it as just kind of like, we'll just go check it out. But really, it's a time to go and check to make sure that the sellers did everything that they were or have agreed to do, and you want to kind of hold that to them. And you also want the home to be clean. It's kind of standard protocol for them to have the home clean before you move in. Does that happen often, or does it not happen?
A good realtor will put that into the contract, because it's actually not a requirement for the sellers to clean the property upon move out. So if you want that, which is something that I do put into my contracts, it needs to be in writing, and everybody has to agree to it. I've seen sellers leave trash, dirty houses, and everything else. That final walkthrough is important. I usually tell my clients as a realtor, and even as an inspector, if there is going to be an agreement to make corrections, it's actually best, in my opinion, to have a follow-up inspection, or at least go back out to the property a few days prior to closing. That way, if something is not corrected complete or corrected correctly, then those it gives you time to kind of work that out before closing. The final walk, mostly though, is just to make sure there's not any casualty loss or egregious sort of damage to the property. It's never a reinspection. You've passed that. You've passed that mountain when you got out of option. So it's mostly a downhill process, and when things are rolling downhill, it's pretty hard to stop. But there are some things that we do look for in the final walk. Most of it's casualty loss.
Well, the stuff I like to do too is I want to make sure that particularly the closing statement, and not only the initial closing statement and the closing statement, which are vastly different. There are a lot of quirky rules that make that initial closing disclosure not correct, and it's important. Not when those come out, I call the borrower first thing. I say, here, it's coming over. When you get it, call me because I need to go over it because it's quirky. Obviously, the promissory note's one of the key documents that you are agreeing to pay on a consistent basis. The repayment schedule, the fees, you want to make sure you know all of that stuff as a consumer and a buyer, and you need somebody like me to go over that with you so that you understand it. And I will tell you that if you go over the closing disclosure the first time at title, you won't know, it won't make any sense to you at all. You've got to do it before. And then the second time you look at it, you go, oh, I get that. And I've heard people say that over and over again, that thank you for going over it early because it was such a blur, the closing was, that I just really was caught up in the moment. Then I always like to talk to people about escrowing or not escrowing for taxes and insurance. This is a decision that you will make, and you should make it before, obviously, you always make it before your closing. But most people, the standard is to escrow for taxes and insurance. I'm not sure it's a great idea. After talking to hundreds of people with problems with escrow accounts, what's your take on that, Joe?
Some people don't get a choice, right? If they're not putting down 20% or more, is that right?
Well, that's changed a little bit, and I've seen people or lenders that will, with 5%, will allow you to waive escrows. So
yeah, for a first-time home buyer, I would say it's probably wise to escrow. I would say if you're a first-time home buyer and you're not familiar with taxes and insurance and saving money for those things, then it's probably a wise thing to escrow. It's in a non-interest-bearing account. So right. You're not getting the interest, and then probably what you've heard or what people say as far as gurus is the opportunity of the free cash to invest in other things that may return.
That's not where I come from on that.
Yeah, where are you coming from? And just the ability to have it too when it's due.
So here's my experience. It's not the money and having access to it, and you're right. If people don't have savings or they're not good savers, they need to have an escrow account.
You gotta have it.
But what happens is the mortgage company and the way that the escrow account is managed is quirky. And they, particularly for new builds and for people buying homes that are buying from retired people.
The escrow whammy.
They're in for a shock. Yeah. And then when you try to fix one of those problems, the people that work at the servicing companies are the lowest echelon of intellect that you'll ever run across. I'm sorry, I'm just telling you. I've done it too many times. They hire the dumbest people, or they don't allow them to have any responsibility towards helping somebody. So it is a nightmare to get something corrected after you've had some kind of mistake. And so I tell people, look, you don't want to go through that. I'm going to save you this. Just don't escrow. And I usually don't tell people that don't have fair, substantial savings and stuff. So enough on that. Let's go on. All right, 5 reasons to buy. I'm going to skip this one because I want to get to this one. We just did this. I want to explain how this worked in this particular one. Now, this was not a first-time home buyer. This was somebody that just recently sold a house. Okay, so it's not a first-time home buyer program. It is an income program, 80% of median income. This gal had a couple $100,000 in the bank from the sale of her previous house. but she wanted to keep it. She's, I'm not going to say in the retirement age, she's still working, but she's getting towards the point where she wants to save some of her money. We used this $4,000 that she was, it's a 97% loan program. And she ended up on I think it was a $280,000 property. The total amount of money she came out of pocket to was right at $10,000 to buy a $280,000 house. And if you know anything about rates, her rate was 6.21. Now rates today are right at 6.99.
Yeah.
So how'd that happen? We ended up using the money, the $4,000, to buy her rate down. And so she got free money to buy down the rate, which took it down to the 6.21. And she also got a contribution from the seller for closing costs.
Nice.
And I mean, it was a great deal for her. And so anyway, I'm just telling you, this is a deal for anybody that makes less than $72,000 a year, and they're flexible. Let's just say that you make commission on top of your salary. Let's say you get $60,000 in a salary, and maybe you make $40,000 in commission. You don't have to count the commission. Or if you do overtime, you don't have to count the overtime. Or if you have a spouse that works, you don't have to count the spouse. I mean, it's a crazy good program with a lot of flexibility, and it's not a hard loan at all. Details of this are pretty standard. We've gone over these before. I'm not going to go over them today because we're running a little late. All you got to do is pre-qualify. Just call me up, and we'll get you done fast. We'll talk about qualifying income. We did that. And this is a look at what rates might be like tomorrow. And I say that because these are not rates today, but tomorrow the CPI comes out, and up until Friday, no, that's not true. Up until yesterday, rates have been doing nothing but go up, but they finally turned the corner, and we're very excited about the report, the CPI that's going to come out tomorrow. We think it's going to be really good for rates, and I expect that rates could even be less than this. So keep your fingers crossed.
Fingers toes crossed, man. We need this to improve.
Yeah.
You know, back in 19, 20, and 21, we were blaming the appraisers for holding things up. Come on, Mike, and we'll start blaming you for these rates, man.
Yeah, well, I wish. Let me tell you, if I had anything to do with them, they'd been way down a long time ago.
Well, I know if anybody is going to find the best rate for my client, it's going to be you.
Well,
So.
I appreciate that. Joe, it's always good, man, to share information with you, and I appreciate you throwing in with me today. I thought it was good information. I think it's the kind of stuff that people need, and I want to encourage anybody that's watching to comment. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and subscribe to our channel. We love to be with you guys and be of help, and we'd love for you to call us also. Other than that, I'll catch you next time.
See you, man. Bye.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.